Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special news update streaming directly to your device all the way from Brisbane, where it is a beautiful day. Well, this is a very short, brief segment because we have other segments coming in today, and I hope that you have enjoyed that real estate update with Usachandra. If you haven't seen that, you can go back on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel and have a look. So as I've mentioned, our Facebook page and YouTube channel, sometimes it's easier to go to past episodes on YouTube than it is to search on Facebook sometimes, but both the platforms are good, where you can go and look at some of our past episodes. So today's episode was real estate update with Usachandra, and don't forget that tomorrow we will be bringing to you the travel updates, and which is going to be very interesting with looking at all the number of restrictions that have been put in place. Well, as I mentioned today, that out here in Brisbane, it's looking like a very lovely day. What has the weather in store for us? With that, let's welcome to Dilraj.
Good morning everyone. Weather forecast for the rest of today is maximum 25 degree. Brisbane area is partly cloudy with medium chance of showers, most likely in the late morning and afternoon. Light winds becoming southeasterly 15 to 20 km per hour in the middle of the day and then becoming light in the early afternoon. Fire danger is low to moderate. Sun protection is recommended till 20 past 2 in the afternoon, and UV index is predicted to reach 6, that is high. Till tomorrow, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day.
And thank you very much for that update, Dilraj. As we know that right now everyone's eye is on India to see what's actually happening in India as that situation sort of worsens there. But before we look at that in detail, here is a response from our Prime Minister at the National Press Conference yesterday.
In extending our sincere condolences to the Baird family. Judy Baird passed away early today and will be sadly missed, of course, by our dear friend Bruce Baird and their family, Mike, Julia and Stephen, and all of their families. Judy was an absolute saint and an angel, and she'll be sadly missed. Today the National Security Committee met, and we were considering a large number of matters, as is normal for the National Security Committee, but in particular we met today to address the situation in India and the terrible humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in India. We recognise that this has been a very significant outbreak in India, and we know for Australians who have family in India at this time, they will be very distressed. The scenes that we're seeing from India are truly heartbreaking. India is a great friend of Australia, a comprehensive strategic partner. We share so much in common as peoples, as democratic nations, and we extend our deepest sympathies and condolences and support to the nation of India and the people of India, to the Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Modi. They are dear friends of Australia, and we will stand with them during this terrible crisis, and for all Australians who are caught up in this terrible set of events. The number of cases continues to increase. 325,000 new COVID cases on the 25th of April on Anzac Day, and over 2,800 deaths. There are significant shortages of key personal protection equipment, medical equipment, oxygen supplies, and a severe disruption of the production capabilities of India because of the impact of COVID on their population. Australia, by contrast, has obviously had a very different experience, and that places us in a unique position amongst many countries to lend our support to India at this time. India has been determined also to be a high-risk country under the process we've put in place for the purpose of travel arrangements. Not only do we have to reach out and support our friends and family and all of those across India, but we also need to take the appropriate steps to ensure that here in Australia we have our border protection arrangements upgraded and put in place to deal with the risks that clearly present from travel from India. Today we agreed, in addition to the measures that were announced after the last National Cabinet meeting, to pause direct passenger flights between India and Australia until the 15th of May. it will be reviewed prior to that time in terms of any further extension of that pause in those arrangements. This will impact directly on 2 passenger services from India into Sydney and 2 repatriation flights from India to Darwin. This impacting around 500 arrivals. Passengers on all future flights, when and if these flights are resumed going forward, we were required to have both a negative PCR test and a negative rapid antigen test prior to uplift. Further flights to India will be considered, as I said, prior to the 15th of May, with a focus on supporting vulnerable Australians, and in particular in relation to charter flights that have been put in place by the Australian Government. Now, for indirect flights, because that is another way that people who may have been in India would come to Australia. Already it has been announced and we're advised that indirect flights through Doha, Dubai, Singapore and Kuala Lumpur, we are aware that flights to and from these transit points and India have been paused by the respective governments. So that third country entry point into Australia has already been closed by those key embarkation points to Australia. That will obviously have impacts on in a positive way in terms of restricting the inflow, in fact in most cases eliminating it for places like Perth and South Australia and ports that do not have direct flights. In addition to these this is all in addition to the existing arrangements that we put in place, including restrictions on outbound travel to India as a high-risk destination last week. But we also have to reach out and support India. As many countries are doing, what Australia will doing is we'll provide an initial package, and I stress this is an initial package. There will be more to follow, of support and to deliver this as soon as possible. So 500 non-invasive ventilators, 1 million surgical masks, 500,000 P2 and N95 masks, 100,000 surgical gowns, 100,000 goggles, 100,000 pairs of gloves and 20,000 face shields. We will also agree to commence procurement of 100 oxygen concentrators along with tanks and consumables. DFAT will manage the movement of this equipment over the course of the next week. I'll ask the Foreign Minister to speak more to the support we're providing to Australians and Australian residents who are in India. We are standing with those Australians in India and recognise the very serious difficulties that they face. A hardship program, which has been in place for many, many months now, continues to be available to provide support to Australians in those circumstances, and consular support continues to be available. I particularly want to commend our High Commissioner Barry O'Farrell for the great work that he and all of his consular team are doing in India right now. They, as you can imagine, have been getting considerable requests, and the work that they've been doing to respond and support Australians in India is highly commendable. I also want to note that over these weeks ahead, the Australian Government will be reaching out through the Department of Home Affairs, directly through the Minister and the Minister for Immigration and Multicultural Affairs, to engage with the Australian community with Indian descent, and reaching out to them, listening to them, engaging in round tables with community leaders to keep them informed of the information that we have available, as well as listening to them about what they are hearing and what they are understanding of the experience of their family members and friends and other associates within India. It's very important that we remain in close contact with them over the course of what will be a highly stressful period for those Australians who are caught up or have family members affected by this humanitarian crisis in India. And we are very keen to ensure that they know that we are standing with them during what is an incredibly difficult time for them and their families and their communities. So with that, I'll pass you on to the Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. And like you, can I start by acknowledging Judy Baird and her family. Coincidentally and completely serendipitously, I've known Judy Baird since I was a teenager. She was my careers counsellor at school, at high school, so I know this will be a very, very difficult time for the whole Baird family, who have been great friends of ours for many, many years, and I convey my warm sympathies and thoughts as well. Prime Minister, I also want to send our thoughts to our friends in India. This is no doubt a very, very difficult time for many, many people. I've been in touch with my very good friend and colleague, Minister Jaishankar, in relation to these issues, and assured him of Australia's very best wishes and our strong support, which we're commencing with the announcements from today. I also want to reaffirm the great leadership and generosity that India has shown to the global community throughout this pandemic. They have in fact exported over 66 million WHO-approved vaccines across the world. I know in our own region how important this has been. In the Pacific, it includes gifting vaccine doses to Nauru and to Fiji. It has also manufactured vaccine doses for Papua New Guinea, for the Solomon Islands, which have been delivered through the COVAX facility, and we warmly acknowledge that generosity. As the Prime Minister did, we also know that for Australians in India and their loved ones, this is a very difficult time. For Indian Australians, many here in Australia will be very concerned about family as well. Prior to the current outbreak, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade had 8 planned flights from India in May, and because of the decisions we have made today, of course, they will be paused, and they are part of our continuing support to Australians to return safely. Those restrictions will be under regular review, but since these efforts have begun, we've seen over 19,400 Australians return from India since March of last year. We currently have just over 9,000 Australians registered in India. 650 of those are registered as vulnerable. As you would expect in the circumstances, this number will certainly increase in the coming days and weeks as people's circumstances change. Since March of last year, we have facilitated 38 flights out of India, 28 flights with Qantas from Delhi, from Chennai, from Mumbai and from Kolkata, which have brought back 5,000 passengers. And when circumstances do allow, through this temporary pause, we will resume those flights and, if possible, seek to increase their frequency if we are able to. I particularly want to acknowledge the efforts of those at our High Commission and our consular posts in India. I've spoken again today to High Commissioner O'Farrell and thank him and the teams across those 4 posts for what has been a very significant task, not just in recent weeks, but in fact since March of last year. I want to absolutely assure those Australians in India and Indian Australians here that our 4 Indian network posts remain staffed by Australian diplomats. They will continue to provide that consular assistance to Australians in distress, including through DFAT's financial assistance program. And that has, of course, been in place for many months now. Our posts will also be redoubling their efforts to maintain contact with Australian citizens in India to ensure that they are informed about travel settings, about any changes and about assistance programs. That has been part of their work for many months now, but certainly in the current circumstances, those efforts will, as I said, be redoubled. I want to advise again our consular contact numbers for those who may need to make contact. From Australia, the number is 1300 555 135, and from outside Australia it is of course +61 62 61 3205. We have seen some increase in registrations in India from Friday and across the weekend. As I said, I expect that to increase, but we will stay in close contact with those Australians and provide the support that we are able to.
Thanks,
Prime Minister. So there you are. That's the update from Prime Minister's office and from that press conference from yesterday. And as we know, the flight arrangements. So here is what the flight arrangements have been. Australia will implement a temporary pause on direct passenger flights, which is between India and Australia for 2 weeks. And what is going to happen with the consideration of further flights to be made by 15th May. So this will affect 2 passenger services from India to Sydney and 2 repatriation flights from India to Darwin, impacting around 500 arrivals. Passengers on all future flights will require a negative PCR test and a negative rapid antigen test prior to uplift. Further flights to India will be considered by 15th May with the focus of supporting vulnerable Australians. For indirect flights from Doha, Dubai, Singapore and Kuala Lumpur, we are aware that flights from these transit points into India have been paused by respective governments. In addition to the existing arrangements, announcements after the National Cabinet was made, the Commonwealth will further restrict outbound travel exemptions to high-risk countries to strictly essential travel only, national interest and medical exemption and COVID purposes only. Support for India. What is that support going to be? The federal government will provide an initial package of support as soon as possible, including 500 non-invasive ventilators, 1 million surgical masks, 500,000 P2N95 masks, 100,000 goggles, 100,000 pairs of gloves, 20,000 face shields, as well as procurement of 100 oxygen concentrators along with tanks and consumables for them. DFAT will arrange the movement of PPE and equipment over the next week. So that's a good course that's been done, handled by the Australian government in such times. And it is good to see that support. And of course, we have seen that many countries from around the world have pledged their support. I know at the ground level, there are many organizations and associations and people who have been supporting the, whatever way they can. Look, the main thing is if we can lobby our respective governments to support at that level, our little bit will help, every little bit will help, but the real impact will be made at a government-to-government level who have the capabilities of moving large, they can be airlifted through those arrangements and they can quickly reach those places where they. Now, one of the points to note is as per the media release put out by GoPio Queensland, that in a time like this, it is not a time for the blame game or name calling, but it is a time for us to be united to see what we can do. As the saying goes, that you never kick someone who's down. You pick them up first. Later I want to explain why he fell down, what he should and what he or she shouldn't do, but not when they're actually down. You don't kick a person who's down. So, as we have seen by social media where people all, criticizing or putting the blame on this person or that person or the government or the Prime Minister, well, okay, they might not be right, but this is not the time for that kind of dialogue. Now is the time for action. Now is the time to be united and making sure that, we do what we can in these circumstances and do what is right in a united manner. Of course, later on we can all look at what happened, why it happened, it shouldn't have happened. Well, shouldn't is another thing because it has already happened. So, now it is a damage control mode where collectively, if we can all channel our energies in towards restoration to see what we can do to make sure that, we can help the situation. As the situation there is quite grim as per this report.
Well, there's still a very acute shortage of oxygen, it seems, across India. Certainly one of the hospitals that we went to yesterday was telling us how they go hour to hour, really, and they were trying to get through the next 6 hours, and this morning they put out yet another red flag warning about the shortage of oxygen. These people here have set up their own impromptu, very small, but just trying to do their bit. They travelled around the state, they went 500 kilometres away to try to source oxygen, which they bought in as many cylinders as they could. It was only about a dozen or so, and people have been camping out here under the trees just to get access to that oxygen. Many of them, as we've been finding in many of these places, and the number of the hospitals that we visited have been turned away from hospitals, even the government hospitals, the private hospitals, because they too are running short on oxygen, and clearly that's put everyone in a very high state of distress. Delhi and India has posted yet more global record highs in the number of coronavirus cases. It dipped slightly today on the 6th day, but it's still a global record high in the spike of cases. And international aid is finally beginning to arrive. The British aid arrived this morning, vital medical supplies, along with, I understand, about 20 oxygen ventilators. Well, that's grasped with great gratitude from the people of India, but clearly it's not going to go very far when you just have a quick look here at just this small little patch under trees and how many people are actually needing oxygen. One woman told us she'd been here for 2 days already, when clearly she should probably be in a hospital. Well, one of the people who are running it is Ishan Singh. Let's try and have a quick word with him. Ishan, you're live on Sky News.
Hi.
Tell me, how critical is the situation here, and how much trouble have you had in finding oxygen?
See, if I talk about the ground situation over here, we have patients who are waiting here for 2 days. They're not finding any hospital. They just wanted oxygen because their doctor has advised they're on high antibiotics. So that lady over there, if you see, she is here with our sons. They rented a car and they came here 2 days back. And still they cannot find any hospital. They cannot find any bed. They are still here because their doctor has advised. If we see over there, there's a man behind me. He came here 3 days back. He was fine. He went back. Again, he came back. So his oxygen is going up and down. There's no medical facility, proper facility available. Yes.
And what do you think, as an Indian, of this state of affairs when it's reduced to charities like yourself trying to provide people with air? What do you make of that as an Indian?
Actually, it's not just about an Indian. I, being a Sikh, I come from a Sikh religion. So we have always given the service to people, starting from Guru Nanak Dev Ji, our first Guru, starting way back in 1469. So he gave free food to hungry people, and it started from there. And when Guru Gobind Singh Ji, our 10th Guru, he was in wars.
Don't mean to interrupt you. I totally understand the history lesson. I just wanted to get a sense, as Indians, how desperate you're feeling. Clearly the Sikhs have got a long history in helping people, but just a global view on how desperate you're feeling. The rest of the world is looking in at you and seeing that you've got the global record highs in coronavirus cases and you're running out of basic things like oxygen.
Actually, the thing is, over here we don't see anyone as a stranger. We all are a family. This lady over here, I call her as my mother, as my sister and everything. This old man over here, I call him as my grandfather or father. So when I see my family over here struggling for oxygen, struggling for medicines, I have to come here and I have to serve my people. That's what we feel. And our charity called Hemkund Foundation, we started 10 years back, and in the lockdown last year, we were on the ground, we were delivering food and everything.
Well, you're doing a great job. Thank you very much, Ishan Singh from the Hemkund Foundation, one of many who are set up to try and help ordinary people, because it doesn't matter where you are throughout India, there seems to be a real acute shortage of oxygen, and that is clearly having an impact on getting people better, and a lot of people very suspicious about the numbers and questioning whether they're absolutely accurate. They could be a lot worse.
So there you are, that news coming from Haryana, and as you can see, there are makeshift, hospitals and where they are given oxygen. So as that report came from Sky News, courtesy of Sky News. So we will keep you updated as we get updates from DFET, we get updates from Australian government too, because we are on the media alert list, and of course from Indian High Commission in Canberra. But for now, the main thing is the travel between Australia and India is at a halt, at a pause. And my plea to everyone is, if it is not necessary, not absolutely necessary, please don't even bother, don't try. Please help the cause, try and stay put where you are. Circumstances may be difficult, but that's the best we can do. And if anyone is in dire distress, you can contact us. Gopia Queensland is also willing to guide people into the right direction, provide any assistance that they can. There are other organizations who are doing so as well. So if there is a need, and if you are in distress, please do reach out to many of the community organizations who are willing to help, Gopia Queensland being one of them. Well, right now, that's all we have time for in this bulletin. We will bring you regular updates as the situation progresses and escalates, and whatever the outcomes are, we will keep you informed. So once again, thank you very much for joining in. We will see you in the next segment. Please, please, please remain safe.